Greetings, everybody. The topic of today is describing how your Vanilla JavaScript is worked together as a web app framework. I'm not going to be using any React or Angular or Vue, but this is in comparison how you would share all of your modules together as one cohesive kind of looking and functionality sharing project. And it's fairly simple. It's something that you would probably done more or less like in college. Not a lot of places I worked at, I don't think they're doing that as much. But you would want to stay away from, when I was young, I guess jQuery would be an example of what kind of went out of style at one point. And I met someone who ultimately said, you don't really need to use anything but just pure JavaScript. And I caught on to that as being pretty good, because then it wouldn't go out of style and it's easy to update and there's no compiling. I don't have to wait on updating redundant, other people's plugins go out of date or have a security issue. That's not something I have to worry about because there's no dependencies. Okay, so that's where I'm going to kind of head here with this video. I'm going to look over some of the topics that I'm going to discuss. And as you can see, I've already discussed these. And when it comes down to sharing back and forth information, there's going to be two ways to cover that. And that would be with your local, like window.location or an href or window.location. All those parameters there will be something very important on sharing information. And also local storage would be something that would be passed back and forth quite a bit. I'd like to say that this local storage could be, in comparison, a good comparison would be like when I use React, they have something called Redux, and it's kind of a global sharing of information. This is very similar to that. You can also use things like a JSON file or a static JavaScript file right then and there, and it will do the same thing. The JavaScript files will something they can share locally. So, like if you're building a game, you would share out all of the, things that would. Let's just get to it. I think I'll be able to show you an example here, and we'll decide how much easier it is to understand. Do you notice how all these apps at the bottom? So as you can see, they're all kind of attached at the bottom. They all look the same. They all have the same, crazy enough, they all can do the same thing too. They can change the theme. And they all have the same functionality when it comes down to, they share the same links, they have the same buttons, all this stuff's the same. And why and how? So this is how you kind of tie them together. Do you see how this says shared CSS? It goes back to my original first game, Blackjack. And so it was my first game. So I basically set the standard there. And the Blackjack standard, has the same one that the poker here has, and so on and so forth. And they all share the same kind of thing. The same background concepts are available. So let me get back where I was. When you look at, for instance, at the bottom of this is Blackjack, it just has a footer. Now, coincidentally, since I'm pointing out that everything there we're dealing with is in the footer, they all have to have this HTML element. And as you can see in this Blackjack file in HTML, I've got a global alert, and that's identified. I also have a social list. I was calling it in a year at one point. I have a function, games, link. These are all identifiers of sorts and functions. They're going to be called back to my footer file. And coincidentally, this thing and all of these, so whether it doesn't really matter, they're all going back to this footer file. Footer file is going to have, this is my contact. This is going back all my options for the theme. It will go back and get it from Bootswatch, sorry, as you can see right here. And one of the key factors that I mentioned earlier, this is how I'm splitting my URLs and getting things pass back and forth, and when I need to pass information, especially for games, look, this is what I'm talking about. Passing darkly is the theme, and my balance, I can change it. If you know what you're doing, you just change it right here, and boom. And then as I go around, it's 509 at every game now. That's pretty easy. I mean, it's a game, so it doesn't cost any money, so who cares if you want to change the number or not. But my advice is always make sure you end with another ampersand, an and sign, because you might want to add in more parameters, and otherwise this will mess everything up. So make sure whatever you're doing, as you can see back on the footer, it's designed so that, let me see here, it will have the ampersand at the end, right here. So that's what I'm doing. You get everything to split off here, and you start dividing out by your split. Obviously, the ampersand splits here, and I guess what I'm trying to say is this would be if this was a 0, this would be your href, and 1 represents like your first variable, and then you split off to the ands for each one of the ands, and then you got to use a decode URI component so it becomes kind of legible, and then from here, as you can see, it's going to come out correct, and we're going to put that into local storage, and I want to set that theme into the theme style set href. This is like the link to the CSS file. Anyway, all these things kind of get addressed based on my theme here, and then we go into navigating for the games. And if everything is at, it doesn't pick up any information, we have to have some kind of defaults, and that's what we're doing here. And if there is something we've saved in a local storage, we're going to go ahead and pick them up. Local storage is, like I said, going to be used similar to Redux concepts. So if it's there, they'll get it. And then that will actually set. And I want this, since it's lower here, we're going to move down to basically a whole bunch of redundancy, and to finally figure out, is there anything, and if not, we'll be using what we just defaulted to. Now, when it comes down to my links of games, I'm basically just writing out an HTML kind of string here, and it's called navigate games, and it's going through my game links, which is right here, and I'm telling it specifically what I wanted to say in this object for each of these, which is all basically this. Let me see here. Yeah, it's building out this, as you can see. So let's have some fun here. Global alert. Global alert is a fairly simple move here, where I do an alert level, which is based on Bootstrap. As you can see, they have color-coded components already built into their framework, which is going to be applying to anything from text to wherever you apply it. And as you can see here, it's applied on a list, but you can also do it in alerts and whatnot. I can pass the alert level and pass whatever message I want to. And they all share the same global alert ID, as you can see here in the footer. So you hide and show based on what you're going to say, and you apply your message and your level, and then after 5 seconds after they've read it, it shows everything back to where it started. And you can see this in action, say here. Let's say I want to just do a test. Do you see this right here? Green, test added. There you go. That's what we're using. This is from that Blackjack game's functionality being used on my Taskmaster. Toggle is a very useful concept. I'd like to point out here as well. So old school style, we go through each one of these elements that has the data toggle attribute, and we add the class hide. Now, after that, we take the element that was passed through the function, and we go through and we find that one in particular, and we remove hide. So, and as you can see here, I'm using it for the rules, and it's toggle, and it's passing rules, and it's hunting down what has the attribute data toggle equals rules. So if it says default, they all shut, and we go on and on from here, and I can go ahead and show you in action. So this is something you'll need. Sometimes I also use one called confirm, so it will specifically be for things where someone's going to delete an item, and I want that independently. Would be very similar to, it would open up and say, are you sure you want to do this? Like that's something similar I do. Toggle is a very simple concept, and it's easy to pass globally and very useful. I kind of want to do some changes here, just a quick walkthrough. If you look at this one, I really like this is my API that I did I don't know, it was a little while back, one of my lessons here. Anyway, if you see, I've got my logo back here, and it's something that I've done locally for this CSS alone. And so what I wanted to do is kind of set this up so I can globally share this concept with all of them and apply it to this guy right here. So what I'm going to do, let's go back. Get rid of that. I'm trying to get rid of all these we're not using. National parks. Let's go to view source. And as you can see, there's the shared one that we're talking about, but the local one always overrides it. So let's swing in there and tell you that I'm looking for the logo. And this is how it works thus far. This is how I'm doing it locally. So I'm going to right click. Now I'm going to go back to Blackjack, where we're logged in. I'm sharing this thing here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build out a new style. It's called within the shared file. And there's some fire truck going by, so sorry about that. And you can just watch while all that noise is happening. Okay, so if it has this class in the body tag, all of these will have the opportunity to have that logo. Because when you make one change, and now it's going to affect everything that's sharing immediately. No compiling. That's the beauty of this. Okay, so if I have this logo, and we're talking about the analyze the bank, so I'm going to swing over to my here, and I'll find it. Yeah. Go to my body tag here. Oh wait. Gotta edit option. Put the edit offer. So I'm going to kind of monitor the deployment so we know that it's been queued. The beauty about this whole thing is its speed, and I feel that its ability not to have to go out of date. And when you don't have to like completely rebuild your project from scratch because it was built in something that's really not supported anymore, that is a huge devastating blow to the company. So like I said, I went ahead and met this gentleman who he basically sold a company to a big power company. His project was where people would go around and they would basically have trucks that were working for a power company, and they can tell how long they're supposed to be at a place, and it's a little green light. And once their time there, a lot had passed, it was like, this should only take 35 minutes or 45 minutes. It starts to turn kind of yellow, and then it turns red if they've been there too long. And so all the people who at the power company could see, the dispatchers could see if people were on time or not. And that's how it worked out, how he sold it to somebody. He went to a convention and set up a presentation and explained to everybody that you could watch and save money on your dispatch because people can't waste time. And he had a great story about how they found that all their dispatched workers they couldn't figure out why they were always late. And it turns out everybody was surfing in Hawaii, and all their trucks were in the same spot. And so it's a funny story. But like I said, let's take a look and see how this worked out. And his name's here if you ever want to check out the guy that influenced me to do this. By the way, if you want to see more about this information, I have this other video that I recommend where I compare two frameworks, or React versus just a vanilla JavaScript with the exact same projects. And that happens here. And if you're interested in seeing the back end side of my whole idea, my portions of I committed a whole bunch of frameworks a whole bunch of frameworks every year, and this one in particular is going to be JavaScript and Node at the end. So check that out if you're interested to see the Node option of this too. So let's get back to the Analyze bank and see what happened. There you go. It just like that. If I put that here, and I can refresh this one, it'll do the same thing. So that's that. And coincidentally, when I go back to this Parks one, I don't have to have this anymore. I can keep this, obviously, if I want it, because it's the same thing. It's just redundant now that I have it here. So eventually I'd need to go in here and update this one, and that'll be that. But it's not on GitHub, so it'll take more time. But thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you learned how to kind of tie things together with really basic JavaScript. You don't really have to work too hard. I think a lot of the stuff that people are doing is just, they found a new way. That it doesn't mean it's better or faster. To me, I don't need to complicate things. I want things straightforward, and I don't want to have to come around and replace them. So that's why I do it this way. Thanks for listening.